Hey, anybody that's listening to this, I'll put a timestamp of when we are actually starting the recording, which should be pretty soon. Hi. You're not on Skype. Just respond in the chat field. Okay, bye. Hey, what up, whoever I hear?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Can.
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Oh, good.
JB?
Oh, I think it's just us.
Just like old times, huh?
Just the two of us.
We can make it if we try. This is streaming live, by the way, so people
Oh, God.
be able to hear how the sausages. How was your trip?
It was good. It was fun. I'm tired.
Paul's here. Hi, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
I don't know. We're with John.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Hey, there he is.
Here.
Sorry about that, guys.
It's okay.
It's all right.
All is forgiven. All is forgiven. I'm just
I
kidding.
appreciate it.
I'm gonna hold this against you for a long time. All right. We ready to rock and roll?
Yeah.
Ready.
All right. Welcome to the Deuce Drop. I'm Dylan Chuck.
John? He usually goes next.
Yeah. John.
Uh-oh.
Hello?
Right. Yes, John. Can you hear us, John Booker? Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
I think that's a no.
John. JB. Oh, he's gone.
Oh, we've offended him.
Well, we've already gotten some of the podcast out of the way, so that's at least we're not like.
So that's good.
Yeah. So I've said welcome to the Juice Drop. I'm Dylan Chuck.
Yeah.
JB.
And then we can just pick up after that.
I mean now.
Oh, it doesn't sound good.
Okay. Sorry about. Do I not? Can you hear me?
It's just cutting out. It sounded better before, but what happened? Like you couldn't hear us?
I could hear you guys. You just couldn't hear me. I was like, "Hello, I'm here."
No, we heard you saying that. We heard you saying, "Hello, I'm here."
Oh, you could?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm calling on my phone now, so let me go back and try it again on my computer because I thought you couldn't hear me. So sorry. We'll try this one more time.
There was a communication issue. It's at some point because at first we couldn't hear you, but right now it sounds all right. Like can we just try like this and see how it goes?
Yeah. If this sounds good, I'm happy to do whatever sounds best.
If it starts cutting out, then I'll take a timestamp but right now it sounds good. All right.
Okay.
Welcome to the Deuce Drop. I'm Dylan Chuck.
I'm John Booker.
And I'm Gina Murtalo.
In this podcast, we're reviewing the second episode of the first season of HBO's original series, The Deuce. And big shout out to our Patreon supporters. If you want to be a supporter of the show, you can go to patreon.com/thewatchandtalk. And big shout out to our premium supporters, Chiquita, June, Endless Mike, and Kaka. And how are we doing, guys?
Good.
Doing good.
John, you're in Nashville right now.
Good. I'm in Nashville, so I'm calling in to be a part of the podcast, but I wouldn't miss it for anything. I watched The Deuce in my hotel room last night on their HBO service and was so happy to get the second episode of this show.
So what are you doing over in Nashville? Are you doing some networking over there?
I'm actually speaking at a few colleges, and then I'm speaking at this big event called the Story Conference in Nashville. So it's I think they've got 1,000 creatives together here in Nashville, and a few people speaking to them. So the CEO of Pinterest is speaking, and one of the guys from Pixar is speaking, and yours truly, John Booker, is going to be on stage speaking.
So they're getting all the brilliant minds from
talking about story,
all over the country.
And I'll do all I can to
you are cutting out a lot.
Deuce drop
this isn't going to work out.
Just laughing.
This isn't going to work out. You are cutting out a lot.
Okay, let me try the other. Let me try the other one. Let's see if that would work.
Okay.
All right. I'll be back on in a sec.
Okay.
I didn't know if it was just me hearing them cutting out, so I wasn't saying anything. Yeah. I figured you'd pick it up.
Trying to let's see if we can tough through it.
Nope.
Hi, Paul.
So he's going to try it on his computer. Hey.
Okay, you said hey like that, like I was saying it to you. Anybody else that's in here? It looks like we have a couple of people in here, so feel free to chime in and let me know that you're who's in here besides Paul.
You didn't just leave your computer on that screen and walk away.
Yes, let's hope not, because then it would be weird too, because it started off at 0 and then it started going up. So that wouldn't. Really... Paul said hi, Gina.
Hey, Paul.
We can get past the hey part of the conversation.
I'm tired. That's all I can say. It's Monday. Gina, what did you think of the episode? Hey.
Yeah, hey. How you guys doing? I'm like, okay, no, we're now halfway through the episode. JB. Oh. Are you back and better than ever? All right.
That's a no.
Technical difficult.
John, we heard you for a second. Didn't sound promising.
I think you meant difficulty. Didn't get the Y.
JB? Yeah. You know what I could do is I could literally call John.
Well.
Uh-oh. Okay,
yep.
We hear you a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, we can hear you now. Let's see if this is doable. Talk to me for a little bit. How are you doing? Did you see Mother this weekend?
I did. I'm still having nightmares about that, but I liked it.
Pretty gnarly movie. Pretty insane movie, to be honest.
How did it end?
I can't even tell you how.
Okay,
I can't even tell you like what happened in the movie at all. To be honest,
I know. I'm just kidding.
Very experimental movie. Okay, let's try like this, John.
I could record while I'm talking, and that way, if I'm cutting out on your end, I could send you my file afterwards.
Yeah, but that would require me. That means I would have to go through and splice in every single time you're talking, which it would just be way too time consuming.
You talk a lot, John.
I do. Podcast. I do.
Thankfully.
We'll either try this if this doesn't work, because now you were okay. A second ago we were talking on the hotel Wi-Fi, and now we're talking on your cell phone.
Nope, just the opposite.
The opposite. Okay. If this isn't working out after a little while, then I can call your cell phone from Skype, and you could talk on the phone. It won't.
Okay.
The sound quality won't be the best, but it's the content that matters when it comes to John. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, back to where we were saying is, just in case, obviously all the brilliant minds across the country are going to the story conference if John Booker's there, but just in case you were going there just for networking, boy, do I have another solution for you could have done, which is gone to CoinCrack, and all you have to do is go to the WashingTalk.com/CoinCrack to boost your social media presence. So hopefully that's not the reason you were going there, John.
Dylan, does CoinCrack have anything to do with spare change and plumbers in your home?
No, nothing to do with that.
Nothing to do
with that. Nothing, absolutely nothing to do with that. But
I feel like there's a really clever joke to be had about CoinCrack and the Deuce, but I haven't been able to put it together. We haven't been able to merge
them together, unfortunately.
Yep.
You'll find it.
I'll find it.
We'll find our way there here pretty soon.
Yes.
Okay. Before we get into this week's episode, which is what we're here to do. Am I right, ladies and gentlemen?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Let's read a nice review we got this week.
Aw, somebody gave us a nice review.
Yeah, we got not everything that we got back this week was positive. One of them tore me apart as a person, but we don't need to give that person air on this podcast. But we actually got this one that kept me going long. I like how John was like, "Geez, that was pretty brutal," and I was like, "Yeah, man, don't worry. I've gotten enough of those that they can pretty much roll off my back right now." Yeah, somebody took issue with me being a millennial,
which is not our fault.
Yeah, it's not. Also, I'm at the very tail end, the very beginning of the possible of millennials. By the way, I think if I was born 3 years before I was born, I wouldn't be considered a millennial. But anyway,
it wasn't a millennial thing; it was a geographic thing.
Yes.
We kind of got clocked for not knowing the difference between over the river and Brooklyn and Manhattan.
Yeah,
and
somebody got mad that we didn't know the difference between Brooklyn and Manhattan, so they said. But I think we said a joke that we didn't know the difference between them. But anyway, it's that would be me giving you crap about not knowing the difference between Redondo Beach and Venice Beach. I could how could I give somebody crap about that? If you're not from the area, you're not from the area. Anyway, but regardless of that, I'm gonna actually ask Gina. Gina, would you mind reading this nice positive review that I just posted in our chat field?
Sure. I just have to figure out how to get to the chat field.
No problem. I'll take a timestamp right now.
Happy to do that.
Timestamp right now.
Okay, I'm there. Do you want me to say who it's from?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me when to go.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, so this review is from Emerald24, and it's entitled Pizza? What about speed? I first discovered Dylan in the Better Talk Saul podcast. Then I listened to Dylan and John make audio humanoid magic on the Westworld Watch. Now I'm dropping deuces with Dylan, John, and Gina on the Deuce Drop. The Watch and Talk is by far my favorite podcast network, and this podcast raises the bar. They're just 2 episodes in and already spitting the pizza or speed discussion. Had me laughing out loud like a doofus on my evening walk. I think I'm more excited about the next podcast episode than I am about the next show episode. Keep it up, guys.
That's a nice positive review. I appreciate that.
It's really positive.
I don't remember really the pizza or speed conversation.
You don't?
No. Could you remind me on that?
Yeah, we they were getting ready to study for a test, and they're like, "Oh, let's
Right.
go get a pizza, Ray's Original Pizza," all the New York pizza places that you have to drop in there. And then immediately someone's like, "Let's get some speed."
Instead,
and then they were in a car getting speed. It was just a really quick progression that you artfully called out, and this guy loved it.
We've all been there. We've all been there.
We've all been there
with speed or pizza.
Yeah. Sometimes a slice just doesn't cut it.
John, are you back? Uh-oh. Hey, John. Could you give me a number to call, and I will call you, and we'll talk to you over the phone.
Yes.
Okay. When you're ready.
I also realized I read a part of that really weird.
I know.
If you want me to do it again, it said.
Yeah, I know.
They're just 2 episodes in and already spitting ?
Yeah, I know.
I don't get it.
Spitting. I don't know. People always reference like things that I've said, and I don't remember everything that I've said. So all the time they could be doing an inside joke about something. Okay, John, I'm gonna call you right now.
Do you want me to say it again? I can read it again.
I feel like
that was weird.
You would like to feel it.
Well, yeah, because I fucked it up.
Good. Great.
Are we waiting for John?
Yes, but I'm trying to. Oh, okay. Two, 3, 9, 1. So he's not going to be in the chat field, but and the sound quality is not going to be the best, but.
Hello.
John Booker.
Hey, John.
Yes. Hello.
Okay, and I guess we will. Okay, we'll backtrack just a little bit. So we're gonna give. So John Booker is, because he's in his mobile location. He's actually gonna be talking to us over the phone, so the sound quality isn't gonna be up to the usual John Booker standards. But like I said. When we're figuring this out, when it comes to John Booker, it's not about the sound quality, it's about the content. That's what I always say.
Oh. Dylan, you make my heart sing, and I'm going to try extra hard with the content since the sound quality is just not going to be up to my usual standards.
Okay, well, you know what? As long as you're trying hard with the content, that's all I'm going to say. Okay, we got a wonderful review, and we decided that when somebody wants to go take the time to write us a review, sometimes you got to give them a shout out on the podcast. So Gina would actually had this queued up to read this wonderful review, and why don't you take Mike?
All right. Well, this is by Emerald24, and it's entitled "Pizza. What About Speed?" I first discovered Dylan in the Better Talk Saul podcast. Then I listened to Dylan and John make audio humanoid magic on the Westworld Watch.
Which is very true. I must interject on there. That is, we made audio humanoid magic, which is, gotta give it a shot.
Which is my new band name.
Yes.
Now I'm dropping deuces with Dylan, John, and Gina on the Deuce Drop. The Watch and Talk is by far my favorite podcast network, and this podcast raises the bar. They're just 2 episodes in and already spitting. The pizza or speed discussion had me laughing out loud like a doofus on my evening walk. I think I'm more excited about the next episode of the podcast than I am about the next episode of the show. Keep it up, guys.
I think that is a reference to our conversation about when they're deciding when they're studying if they're going to have some pizza or do some speed. We've all been there.
They choose the latter.
Yeah, we've all been in the situation. You only have enough budget for pizza or speed, and you got to choose one, and we get stuck in the situation. Anyway, thank you.
I protest. You don't need to choose. Have you never cooked a speed pizza before? Come on, man. That's killing
just
2
sprinkle
birds
it
with
on.
one
You know what?
That's right.
Me being such a millennial, I guess I have never had a speed pizza before. So I'm. Thank you for making sure to say that before we get somebody writing us in about that. But thank you very much, Emerald24. That was a wonderful review. And Paul in the chat says pizza is better than speed. I can't say I disagree. I I mean, I guess I can't say I have too much of an opinion on the subject. I actually should say. Speaking of which, we do stream our episodes live on YouTube. So if you ever, if you ever are interested in joining on our conversations, we usually record Monday evenings, and you can search for the Watch and Talk on YouTube and follow us, and we'll give you a notification when we go live. Usually on our Twitter feed at the Deuce Drop. I'm usually pretty good about giving a heads up about when we're planning on going live and all that kind of stuff too, so you can make sure to jump in and join the conversation. So if you ever hear us refer to somebody in the chat, we are referring to somebody in our YouTube chat when we're streaming. Anyway, all right, we're in our second episode. We had some controversy where we thought the second episode was going to be last week. Boy, was that not right? Gina came over to watch the episode. We were get ready to watch the episode, and nope, no episode was airing. The pilot was airing, and we watched Jeopardy instead.
Yeah, then I had to hang out with you for an hour anyway.
Yes, and you were stuck hanging out with me, and we
made the best of it.
We had speed pizza. Anyways, second episode is called Show and Prove. Episode is directed by Ernest Dickerson. He's directed 11 episodes of The Walking Dead, 6 episodes of Treme. I think Treme only had 10 episodes for its only season. If I'm not mistaken, 9 episodes of Dexter. And we were big Dexter fans. Also, a couple movies in the early 90s. Did Juice, Bulletproof with Adam Sandler and Damon Wayans. The first Tales from the Crypt movie, which is called Demon Knight. And then, Gina, I figured you'd like this. He directed the movie Surviving the Game with Ice-T with the classic line, "Always check the barrel."
If you haven't seen the movie Surviving the Game, you've done yourself a disservice, and you must go find it.
Has the classic movie line, "Always check the barrel."
Always check the barrel.
I highly recommend Google searching "Always Check the
Humans."
Barrel.
It's a good movie.
So it's basically like the movie The Pest, except a serious version of it, where he gets stuck with these super expensive hunters who like to hunt human beings. He gets captured and put in this situation where he has to try to survive with human hunters. And he has to try to survive the game.
And it's Ice-T, by the way. Did we mention who that is?
Ice-T. For some reason, after an excellent run of 90s movies, Ernest Dickerson decided to switch to TV, and he hasn't. Yes, Gary Busey is in Surviving the Game, Paul. It is I think Rutger Hauer's in it, too. It's a random.
He's definitely in it.
But again, has the closing line, which is a classic, which is "Always check the barrel." I would Google search "Always check the barrel" just to hear how that line is delivered also. Anyway, let's get into the episode. Starts off with Officer Alston, played by Lawrence Gilliard Jr., and Officer Flanagan, who now I just kind of think of as a creep. After the first episode. But they're drinking at a bar with a couple detectives. Right. Are those detectives, or are kind of like undercover type of people or something like that? How would we describe those? Because we kind of see them throughout the episode.
Yeah, anyway. They're fellow plainclothes cops, I would say.
Okay. And and then they immediately go and arrest some prostitutes with the van afterward. Flanagan seemed like he was drunk. He was really drinking at the bar. He kind of stumbled away. So I like that we see these cops are all pretty hammered some of the times. So they're checking property vouchers, and at first I didn't understand this, but then I kind of looked into it to kind of understand what had happened. So basically, they're checking to see if any of them had been arrested in the last 48 hours. If they had been arrested in the last 48 hours and they were let go. If they hadn't, then they were just arrested. There was kind of goes along with this revolving door. Like, they truly have a revolving door over there where it's not even a thing when you're being arrested at any situation. It's just kind of paperwork you have to do when you're being arrested.
Yeah, it's totally pointless. It's like you think of the money being spent on the officers doing that and other crimes that are probably going on in the city, but that's the way it works. So they just have to do it.
Well, and this is very consistent with David Simon's constant exploration of local politics and especially local government, because the reason they're setting up this revolving door is so that they can put out statistics that say we had this many arrests in prostitution and this many arrests in petty theft, and so they can have a record that they had that many arrests. They don't really care if they're turning them loose only to arrest them 48 hours later. It just makes their statistics look better, and this is something of big concern to politicians. So again, this is really consistent with David Simon's theme about the corruption of local politics.
Just like it's also I like this property vouchers as being the system. It's just an interesting way of, you basically have amnesty for 48 hours after you've been arrested, and just to show who's been arrested and who they've touched base with. I'm assuming they're gaining revenue for the system while they're doing these arrests. I'm assuming each of these people, every time they're arrested, are paying a small fine, which is, I'm sure, more than paying for the time and the effort that. After the opening credits, we see Ashley, who was Cece's quote-unquote bottom bitch before, but it seems like she has lost that title already to Lori, played by Emily Mead. She's a photo shoot, and she, there's a guy taking pictures of her. She's trying to increase her earnings and trying to diversify her portfolio a little bit. And it probably has to do with the threat that she received at the end, right?
Yeah.
Well, and they're also beginning to plant seeds here for what the big arc of the show is going to be about. They're starting to show that some of these girls were already doing this for, doing pornography for a variety of different reasons. And so they're starting to show us the initial, moves towards what will become a major story arc in the show, which is the establishment of an entire industry of pornography. But I like how they're sort of showing it is like this really, really small time industry, that you have these photographers that are actually charging the girls to take photos.
Right. Yeah, and he gets like $30-$40 out of it. Now, when you think about it, 25% of all internet traffic at any given time is going to pornography?
Right.
At the time being, it is a multi-billion-dollar industry now, and we're seeing it here in its early stages being such a small industry. It's just interesting to see, especially to see where it's come now. It's just interesting to see where there wasn't an industry for porn.
Right.
But yeah, and also how she, like, when he's taking the pictures of her, she like puts her arm behind her head and she shows her armpit hair, and he's like, better put your arm down.
She also showed that big cut from Cece.
Yes, and
I think that was why he didn't want that armpit.
But yeah, so anyway, she also didn't seem to be expecting to be charged. She thought he was joking at first.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, I gotta get, I'm not doing this for free. So yeah. Anyway, so he also tells her about Darlene, about that there's a porn video at the local sex shop. How she thought, we end up finding out later that she thought that he was just filming it for his own records, and the guy took it and actually sold it. So that's obviously something we kind of deal with as the episode goes along. Candy comes into the Korean restaurant with Ruby, and Vincent very respectfully says, "Hey, basically, don't be working here this early. Be very discreet." And she's like off duty, scouts on her. But it appears at this point, I mean, throughout this whole episode, they make sure to hit it home that business is booming in the shop for him with the changes that he made in the last episode.
Well, and I like how Ruby looked down the bar at the girl in the leotard.
Yeah.
And was like, what does discreet mean?
Yeah.
Because that girl was wearing less clothes than they were. Yet, like, she's allowed to because she's, legit bartending. I thought that was kind of a nod to the, like, murkiness between those jobs. Like, who's exploiting who? Which one is, seedier or more legitimate? Like, the lines are kind of blurring. So I think that was an interesting little commentary.
And it seems like he doesn't want competition with his waitresses for actual prostitutes.
Mm-hmm.
And Ruby says to him, "Hey, you definitely got some pimp in you," and laughs at him. And he's looking at her like, what are you saying? They're like, "Relax, it's a compliment. A compliment. You don't take offense to it or anything like that." So I think that's But you're right. Just what John was saying, that he likes to talk about the local politics of it. What is like, who's the more offensive party in this situation, right? Like, the lines are really blurred in a lot of these situations.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's also showing that everybody has a line, but everybody's line is in a slightly different place.
Yep.
And so I think, that they're going to explore this idea of what happens when a group of people, all their lines collide. In other words, this person says, no, that's too far, but this is acceptable. But this group of people says, no, I'll go this far. And so they end up putting an entire industry together, but it still is further than this group wants to go. So I think it's a really interesting exploration that he's showing just on a one-on-one level of everybody has a line, everybody draws the line somewhere, but where do you draw that line, and how does that work in conjunction with where everyone else draws the line?
And the girls kind of get together and talk about doing porn videos. And the thing that Candy has the biggest issue with it is that you only get paid once with it. She's like,
I like how her mind's always on the business.
Right. Which is,
the money, she's like, that's not lucrative.
Or that she, even though we saw last episode, she had sex with that kid for $50. In this episode, she went and did a porn for $75. She got more money. But she still has an issue with the fact that somebody else is making money off of her. That's what she has a bigger issue with. So I think that it's interesting that it's still a problem with her, even if it means that she's making less money, as long as somebody's not making money off of her that shouldn't be getting it. She's like, every time somebody goes to see it, they're putting a quarter in the machine, and you're not seeing any of that money. That's the biggest problem that she has with it. And Darlene talks about doing it privately for somebody, and Ashley's like, no, it turns out that video is actually floating her over at Fat Mooney's. And Fat Mooney's is the name of the local porn shop that I guess is going to be a part of the set piece for the show as we go. And Darlene immediately
Did you guys pick up on some of the nuances there of Fat Mooney's, that the majority of what he's selling out of there are actually books, adult-themed books, and even the films and stuff he's selling are edited, in the hardcore stuff is just something he's selling under the counter. So I thought it was pretty interesting just seeing sort of the nuances of those shops in that area, as seedy as it was still pretty tame, what they were selling and what they were doing.
Right.
Yeah, because I think it was illegal to sell the harder stuff.
Right.
Now, also,
so it's weird to think about that as a law
see them,
at that time.
We see Larry and Darlene, I believe, if I remember correctly, Cece and Lori in the X-rated theater later, which is just so funny for at least for people my age. The idea of
millennials,
millennials. The idea of going, it's just so weird referring to myself as a millennial. But yeah, I've looked at the definition. I fit the definition by a year or two. The idea of going into a theater and watching porn with a bunch of people is just so foreign to me. Like, I remember being a kid and hearing about, Pee Wee Herman getting caught in an X-rated theater or whatever. But since I've been an adult, it's never been something that at least I knew that people did. I've never known anybody that's gone doing it. It just seems like it's funny because porn viewing is such a private thing now for my generation that doing it publicly or going and seeing it publicly is such a weird concept. I don't know if you guys agree.
It is.
I agree.
No, it is. It is. But part of that is because of the invention of the video cassette recorder, when people, then could watch it in their own homes. Before then, there was really no other way to, see that sort of content. So there still is, I don't know around the country how many of these still exist, but there still is a porn theater in Hollywood, right down on Santa Monica Boulevard, but it's they only play gay films. And so it's a gay porn theater that still shows daily, screenings of films that, people go in and watch together. But
hey, gay pays,
I've never been myself. I've never been myself, so I don't know.
You seem to know a lot about that theater.
You know a
John.
lot about it, John. Goodness, you're like,
They
yeah,
got
their
great
matinee,
popcorn,
their
I've
matinee
heard.
prices are very economical. So
I am only saying that it doesn't appear there's a snack bar in the front of it, and that concerns me. And so even if I was curious, I can't go to any theater that does not have a snack
a lot of
bar, and
revenue
that's
in
where
that
I
snack
draw
bar.
the line.
That's where I draw the
That's
line.
where your line
my
is.
line.
That's
where
where I
your
draw
line
the
is.
line.
There's
If
a
they
lot
had a snack bar, even if I wasn't into the films, I might consider going in just because I'm a big fan of movie hot dogs
of
and
snacks. So you're
I'm
going
just
to the gay
saying,
porn theater just for the
maybe
hot dogs. You know what I'm saying?
maybe
All right.
that would be a reasonable thing to sell at the snack bar. That's all I'm saying.
Paul in the chat said, "No snack bar, no John Booker." That's
it.
That's a policy. That's going to be on your
The way I
tombstone.
roll.
That's going to be on your tombstone. So anyway, when the prostitutes get brought to the station, one of them gives the station chief crap. He says, "Why are you looking at me, judging me? You know that I make more money than you." And he responds, "Hey, my wife makes more money than me." It's kind of a shitty response about his wife. Like, yeah, no, duh. My wife even makes more money than me. Like,
Yeah, I guess
just,
cops don't get paid a lot.
I guess the sign of the time, though. Like, I mean, even nowadays, polls show that men have an issue with their wife making more, even nowadays.
Yeah.
That back then, I don't know if somebody would admit this out loud. My wife makes more money than me. No, duh, prostitute makes more money. That's just. I think that was an interesting, pretty repulsive response for the prostitute about that. Anyway, but it's also odd to see them order Chinese takeout for them, and
yeah.
but it just shows.
I also think what they're doing there is they're setting up a power dynamic, because they're showing that the cops make less money. And if the prostitutes make more money than the cops, there's going to be a power dynamic that at some point these women are going to need the cops to look the other way if some of these things that, they're going in busting people for are going to exist. Well, they're going to need the cops to look the other way. So I think they're setting up a financial power dynamic that shows that the women actually have some bargaining chips when it comes to getting something they need from the cops later in the series.
So, yeah, and it seems like they already kind of have, a little something worked out because no one's ever being charged with anything.
Right.
They're just spending the night. So, yeah, it is kind of interesting to see what that means, like where their relationship is now and, like you said, kind of where it's going.
Yeah.
So Darlene comes to Fat Mooney's on a warpath, and he pretty easily gives up the remaining tapes to her, and it seems like she even gets $10 out of him too.
Yeah, I liked that. Yeah. I liked Darlene.
Yeah.
That was a good character defining moment where she's just like.
I think you cut out.
I know. Sorry, Daniela just called me.
Oh, that's rude.
So I know. Doesn't she know?
Yes.
Doesn't she know we're taping? Okay, but we're all good.
But
sorry.
Continue what you were saying. You like that she was like.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just like how she went down there pretty much right away and felt like she was being slighted and wasn't afraid to go speak her mind. So that was a good character defining moment, I think, for Darlene. I liked her even a little bit more in that moment. So that was a cool part.
It's interesting to see what's going to happen. Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
I was just going to say she's quickly becoming one of my favorite characters on the show. Just there's such an earnestness about who she is that I think she's just chewing up every scene she's a part of in a great way, because she's so fascinating just to watch her trying to figure out life in this environment, and I'm just loving that character.
I think it's going to be interesting to see, because I feel like once they get full blown into the porn industry in this show, that she's going to be on the artsy side of the porn films, because she seems to have a knack for, at least a passion for story.
Mm-hmm.
which is why one of the reasons that her as a character may be it's so interesting to John. But obviously, she was so moved by A Tale of Two Cities in the first episode, and in this episode, she goes to and gets a library card and gets a book. We don't see what the book is, right, per se, but
I bet it's A Tale of Two Cities.
Yeah, I think it's.
Which another just really sympathetic, like cute moment for her.
Because he brought up the book. He brought up the book, and she said, "There's a book," and he's like, "Yeah." So I think it's.
Yeah.
Candy's mom, with their board game conversation, just some pieces are missing. She's like, "What do you want me to do? Go get a new one?" He's like, "I have a board game he can play. It's called Mystery Date. I'm sure we have all the pieces to that game." And she's like, "That game's not for boys."
That was low.
It's funny that Candy doesn't get upset about this. Like with these passive aggressive like comments back and forth with each other, you'd think that she would be getting more upset, and she doesn't seem to be getting upset. She takes it all in stride, and she still gives her mom a kiss and thanks her for all that she does. Because she wouldn't be able to do this the way she is. She does it without it. And it seems like Candy has money, right? Candy doesn't pay a pimp. So Candy has a state-of-the-art projector seemingly at her house. She has an answering machine when they weren't very common, as I saw people discussing on a Reddit forum. She immediately forks over money to buy Operation, which is a state-of-the-art game at the time. And somebody's playing it right now.
I'm sorry.
That really sounds exactly...
Okay, I mean, do you want me to stop and text her so she stops texting me?
Sure.
Okay.
But that was really perfect timing.
The timing was so perfect because that's exactly what it sounds like when somebody hits the side in Operation.
You could also put it on, not on vibrate, put it on silent or whatever.
I mean, I thought I did.
Paul in the chat says Candy and Darlene are the two most intriguing characters in my opinion. I think that and Cece.
Oh, yeah.
I would add CC to that conversation.
CC is pretty fascinating.
Okay, we should be good in case, unless someone else tries to contact me.
Okay. Well,
sorry.
Can you put your phone off of vibrate to silent so it at least doesn't vibrate?
I have to figure out how to do that.
There's buttons on the side of your phone. Should be on the left. You just press them until they... Or I think you have an iPhone. Nope. It has a switch, right? A switch that switches.
Yeah, but it still vibrates. It doesn't put it on
vibe skis.
Silent.
Still. All right, whatever. So yeah, I'd say Cece, who I'd add to that conversation because they're adding some pretty interesting dynamics as far as him is. So Vincent and Frankie discuss his business with Bobby Dwyer, who's played by Chris Bauer, who was, I think a lot of people would recognize from True Blood, but he's been in a ton of stuff throughout the year.
Yeah, he's one of those faces.
Wire.
Yeah, he's on The Wire.
Okay. I couldn't place it, but he looked really familiar.
It's really fun to pay attention to the shot selection when you're seeing Vincent and Frankie in the same scene. Because whenever they can, it shows them together at the same scene together. But to save money, often it goes, shot, reverse shot. And it'll show one of them, their silhouettes in it. And it's just interesting to pay attention to when you're seeing it. From a TV budget perspective, thinking about how they're shooting it, it's just fun to pay attention when you're watching it. But
they seem to always end it with when you see both of them. That's what I've noticed. It's always like behind the head, and then they finish with seeing both Francos.
I keep noticing that as well, which for me is a small critique of the show because it takes me out of the story when I start thinking about Franco playing both characters. Right. As much as I think that's a really great thing, for him as an actor, and it's really daring and courageous. I'm not sure that it completely serves the story well because I think more about Franco playing both of those actors than I do about them being separate characters adding to the overall story. So it's a small thing, but it's a small critique I have right now of the show is whenever I see them in a scene together, it takes me out just a little bit.
I'd have to agree, and I don't know what they would change because the nature of it is that he's an identical twin. But I do keep kind of going, wow, that's a lot of Franco happening right now when they're back and forth. And it's just a lot of Franco, which I usually don't complain about. But
it's the name of one of my favorite porn movies is A Lot of Franco.
Too much Franco.
Yeah, too much Franco is the sequel.
I kind of agree with you, John.
I'm having a different reaction to it. It's not taking me out at all. Like, I'm looking at it as, wow, this is such a fun experiment for the actor and for the filmmakers. That I think that they're doing a good job of it so far. That they are two defined characters at this point. I had my issues that I discussed in the first episode that they just both look so similar. There was no confusing them in this episode for me at all. Obviously, I had some issues in the first episode, but they were completely gone in this. They were, obviously each character was completely defined. And now that we have, now that they're introduced, it wasn't so weird that they did what they did in the first episode. But it's also interesting to see how much Vincent is taking on the chin for Frankie, and that Frankie is in the room of him discussing paying off some of the debts. And, just not involved in it. And that Frankie doesn't seem to give him any credit for that either.
He owes him something. There is backstory there.
Sure.
And I am really excited to see what it is. I feel like they're building that up because, yeah, you're right. He's in the room. He's like, oh, yeah, the guy over there. How is he not a part of the conversation? So he's definitely... And
the made men also were very clear that they did not want Frankie involved in any way, shape, or form. That's very clear.
Right.
He backs him up. He says, "Hey, Frankie's okay. He's just bad with money," and that's something that is Vincent's strength. He says that he's as good as it can be. It's a personal pride for him, and he might be one of the best. He wants to see if he can be one of the best with money.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
I think that in addition to the fact that I think they are building to this backstory that's going to reveal, what he owes him, I also think they are really making a point of showing us just how arrogant that Frankie is, because he mentions, that, hey, I'm older than you. And right. Vincent says, oh, yeah, just minutes. By just a couple of minutes. Yeah. And he says, yeah, but still, I should be treated better. I should have more privilege because I'm a few minutes older than you.
I think he said that kind of joking, but he deep down isn't joking. Right.
Yeah, I agree. I
think there's still some, he says, hey, what can I say? He's like, you always, you were the baseball recruit, always had the girls, always had the nice car. And he's like, hey, what can I say? Yep. But it's interesting to see that. I do think that Frankie still feels like he's the older brother, even though it seems like Vincent acts like it. Right. Anyway, Bobby Dwyer comes by later and sees that they're doing really well, and he came by to have some drinks at the bar, obviously. And there's a made man over there. Vince has to go kiss his ass, but he cashes checks for Bobby Dwyer and his two coworkers, and they're construction workers.
If only we could do that at a bar these days.
Yeah, so just be like, here, can I sign the check over to you and you give me cash, right? Well, it's also interesting that they don't pay them early in the day because they're afraid that people are going to leave their shift and go drink.
Yeah,
it's just
there is a liquor store near my house that allows people to sign over their paychecks to the liquor store, and it's pretty much the saddest thing I think I've ever seen in my life.
I need to move to JB's neighborhood, it sounds like. I need to get in on that.
You don't. That gives you an indication about my neighborhood, man.
Yes, it does. It does. We'll talk later. But anyway, you see that the light bulb comes up over Vincent's head when he's like, hey, I you see, it's an issue for these people. They can't cash their checks until Monday. They get paid at the end of day Friday. Banks are already closed, and banks are closed the whole weekend, and then they can't cash their money until Monday. So he's like, yeah, I'm signing these checks over so they can use their money here, but there's money to be made during all this. So he gets a little light bulb. Next scene, we see Emily Mead, plays Lori, very topless.
Not just
long
halfway,
time.
all the way.
for a long time. And there's no complaints here from that. I appreciate that. There's something that they talked about that I saw people talking about online that the show is doing, and that David Simon said he wanted to make the sex scenes, which are plentiful in this. He wants to make the sex scenes he wants to take away the sexy from the sex scene. And there's lots of sections that we've seen in here where they're very procedural because the sections aren't sexy to a prostitute. They're doing their job. It's just like anybody when they go clock in at work. It's it's just it. I mean, it's a little different, obviously, for
a little different.
but for them, it's very day to day stuff. And
I think he's succeeding in that.
Yeah.
Because I'm already starting to become like really desensitized to it. Like definitely the first episode, there were a lot of moments that were like, oh my gosh. And now it's just kind of part of the show.
Well,
I feel like he is taking us in that world.
I'm jumping ahead a little bit, obviously, but I must say with the potato soup being splattered on them, which I thought when we first see it, we think we're seeing a cum shot. And I was watching it and my jaw dropped. I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that it's showing a cum shot on here." And then I saw the turkey baster and the potato soup, and I'm like, "Oh wait, no, I'm not." But still, it was still. I feel like it's shocking to see. It still feels completely shocking to see a turkey baster shooting potato soup, cold potato soup, as it's described in the show. It's still. I still feel like I'm seeing stuff on here that I've never seen on shown on TV. John, sound like you were trying to say
without
something.
Without question, they are definitely, I think, pushing the boundaries of what television has shown in times past. And with that particular moment, it's at first we think, oh my God, this is so exploitive to show something like this. And then they show what the source of it is, how they're pulling this off, and it actually becomes a narrative point in the show. They're showing that. To me, what I read from that scene is they're showing that they are creating something that wasn't real. In other words, real life. These guys couldn't perform like that in real life, but they were still intent on creating a fantasy for the viewing audience that was beyond what real life could be. So to me, that's sort of what they're getting across in that scene, is trying to show that it wasn't just enough to show sex on screen, on camera, that they were selling something bigger than that. They were selling ultimate fantasies, and specifically ultimate male fantasies. Right. Is what they were producing. Because I can't imagine that. Just enough said. But I think that it's an important thing to see what they're doing there, that I don't think they were just being exploitive to show that scene. It had a point.
Just like it's what you hear me talking about, hey, it's really fun to pay attention to the shot selection when it's showing Vincent and Frankie in the same scene. We see Cece and Lori talking in the theater when they're at that X-rated theater. And he's talking about, look how it cuts away just before the penis goes in because they can't show actual penetration. It's illegal to show actual penetration in porn right now. So he's sitting there, having the same conversation as us, taking away the magic from her while he's sitting there talking about it. And it's interesting to see that that's how they call them the brown paper bags porn shops, where if you want to see penetration, you have to go see it, which is kind of backroom stuff if you want to see that on film. So anyway, so Cece and Lori seem to have a special bond they've grown, and he quote unquote confides in her about how he's in a position where everybody just wants him to fail. He's like, other pimps want me to fail, in the end, so they can scoop up my business. We make it like it's a family with the prostitutes that work for him, but in the end, they just want me to fail, right? And he says he has to play all sorts of mind games to keep them all in check and all that stuff. But he just needs one good woman, and he's out of the business.
Do you buy that he was really confiding in her, or is that what he uses on all the girls?
I don't know.
I don't think I really bought.
He did say he likes to play mind games, so it's interesting to see if he's playing a mind game with her. But he does seem to have a connection with her that he doesn't have with the other.
I'm suspect to it. I think they're trying to convey that, but I'm a little wary.
Gina, you've just been there too much.
Yeah. Oh, I've heard the whole, oh, you've been to Paris? No, I haven't been to Paris. I mean, it's the oldest trick in the book.
oldest trick in the book. He snaps when she brings up her old pimp, too. And he says he's her first real man pimp. And she's like, okay, all right, sorry.
Some pimp insecurities over there for Cece.
Serious pimp insecurities. Anyway, Frankie comes to
I think before we move on, I think it's important though to also look. This is John Booker loving to go, right to the deep theme in a scene like that. But I think it's important to look at what they're doing, and I think they're examining this the state of masculinity in this environment, that even though these guys are portraying the height of masculinity, there's actually a deep insecurity that's going on there. So I think they're establishing all the elements that lead to the porn industry, and I think we're seeing this toxic masculinity that's unsustainable in this environment, and you have to recognize that is part of the stew that's going to produce this industry that's going to come out of this is a male insecurity, which also I think goes back to the scene, that with Maggie Gyllenhaal
and Larry.
And Larry, that we're seeing this toxic masculinity that is sort of unbridled it many times, but we're also seeing the soft side of it from time to time. We're seeing how sometimes masculinity is so insecure that it's a little bit heartbreaking, and I think we're seeing that play out in ways that's very harmful to some of the characters on the show, and is very heartbreaking to see how it affects other characters.
So I guess that's a good segue to talk about the scene at the breakfast place the next morning, when first we get Ashley throwing shade at Lori pretty hard. She definitely feels threatened by her relationship with Cece, which is why another reason why I think that there is something special between Cece and Lori. That it's not just him giving lip service, although I think it's a part of it. But I think Ashley's, how she's pretty nasty with Lori. I think that kind of shows that there is something there. But what John was saying about the portrayal of masculinity in this, Larry comes up to try to pitch being the Candy's pimp, and she's like, "Hey, Rodney's been giving me the same pitch all month," and he goes, "Hey, Rodney isn't right for you. He has no sensitivity to him." He's like, he isn't curious about the human condition. And then Darlene plops down next to him, and he says, "Excuse me, bitch, can't you see I'm talking here?"
Such an asshole to her.
And
I thought that was so well done.
She walks away, and then he goes, "Anyway, like I said, there's no sensitivity to him," which I think was
He's
hilarious.
So oblivious,
scene. Right? And
that was really well done.
Candy gets offered by another one of the prostitutes to go and fill in for her for a porn scene for $75 later that day. And that girl had a black eye, so I don't know if that was a part of her.
She got it from her pimp.
Yeah.
They addressed that earlier, so yeah, I guess she couldn't go do porn.
Did he hit her because he didn't want her to go do the porn?
I don't remember them getting that deep into it.
Does the pimp get a percentage of the porn, the money they get from doing porn?
That's a great question. I don't know.
I assume that the pimp gets a percentage of any dollar that she makes.
Right.
I assume that she turns over all her money to the pimp, and then he just takes care of her. That's how pimping works, to my understanding.
That sentence from John is a good one. But I assuming that's going to be a plot point as we go forward somewhere, somehow, where somebody decides that they don't, I'm sure one of the girls are going to want to get into the industry and not deal with with a pimp anymore, and that the pimp's going to take it. So Frankie comes to the Korean bar and sees Vincent sitting down with a few made men. One of them is the one that Vincent's paying off because of Frankie's debt. The other one's name is Rudy Papillo. Papillo?
Yeah.
I'm probably screwing that up. I'm definitely
Something like
screwing that
that
up with the way I'm saying it. Anyway, so they discuss him basically taking over payroll of the employees at the construction job. So the employees, like we discussed, the employees are paid after shift on Friday, but they can't get their money until Monday. So the mob started funding them the cash for a 5% fee. So this is a time before ATMs and before debit cards and all that kind of stuff. So obviously,
now does that 5% come out of each person's paycheck?
To my
in
understanding,
order to get the cash, it's okay to pay that 5% because they're getting cash.
Correct. So my understanding is that they're basically signing over their paychecks and they're getting 5% back, or they can opt to still get their paycheck on Monday if they wanted. But it seems like they all are taking I'll
cash.
Pay 5% and I'll take the cash.
Yeah.
And the foreman set it up so there are 4 no-show jobs for mafia guys, so they can use it as tax income. So basically, you're putting 4 of my guys on your payroll. You're not, you just so I can show when tax purposes come around how they're making them.
They're on the payroll, but they're not coming to work.
Right.
Got it.
And Rudy discusses with Vincent what he did to turn around the business. And Rudy talks about stagnant water in the area and how they need to get the water moving, right? He walks to his car and he walks by a couple prostitutes on the way, and he's like, no, it's never going to change around here if business owners can't, if they're going to deal with prostitutes on their way back to their car, right? He's like, we got to get the water moving around here. There's a lot of unowned businesses, abandoned buildings over there that they want to get filled up. So it's interesting. They notice an opportunity there.
Mm-hmm.
And Vincent's like, I don't know, Rudy. I just go to work every day and make my money. But anyway, so Darlene gives the tape to Larry and tells him about it, basically the porn tape. And she isn't really convinced that he cares that much. And he says he'll take care of it. So I guess I have more to discuss about this later. I have some questions for you. Talk about that one.
Okay.
In the only scene that we see Abby really in, or the only little bit, she is kicked out of college. She flunked out, but she wants to stay here in the Deuce.
Did she just tell her mom that I don't think she actually failed every class. She just told her mom that she failed every class. Like, I have to leave.
I don't know.
Right? That's how I took it. I
think she did. She is dropped out regardless. So I don't think.
Yeah, either way, she's dropping out.
So her parents are upset, but she said she'd find her own way, and then her mom gives her an envelope of cash. And Abby moves
that upset. She's like, I kind of expected this. Here you go.
She moves to a crappy rundown apartment with seemingly unfriendly roommates.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. The first day of the foreman's job seems to go well, and the main men are pretty impressed with Vincent as a business manager. So Rudy takes him to a bar and says the owners are getting foreclosed on. And Vincent chats it up with Paul, the bartender, about the problems the place has. It's a gay bar, and it started getting targeted. So basically, people would see any married men and contact their wives, basically. People thought they could go there in secret.
Who was targeting?
Seems
who was going in there? Police, religious groups? Like, who was that?
I get the impression that the mafia went and targeted them, so the business tanked, so they could take over, and then they owned the business.
Oh. Okay.
That was my impression as well. That was my impression as well, is that they were blackmailing guys that they were going to tell their wives that they were there, and it ran out all the customer base, and they were able to take it over.
Got it.
So Rudy basically offers him the bar 100%. It's yours, but I'll get my rate, which is $1,000 a week flat, plus the income from the machines in the place. But the business is 100% yours. And Vince's like, and he's like, you got a problem with who I am, Vincent? Look, you got to pay rent anywhere you go. Just think of me as a regular landlord. That's all. And we see him talking to Frankie later, who's surprised that he accepted the offer. And he's like, I thought you hated those maid guys. And he's like, Rudy's different. He's a businessman. He came at me straight. And
I feel like that's going to come back to bite him.
Yeah.
I just get that feeling.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm confident that this will be a decision he greatly regrets is getting in bed with the devil.
Yeah, it's not going to be good.
So Candy arrives for the porn shoot. It's a Viking epic. And
I don't know about epic, but they do have Viking hats.
While in the waiting room, someone comes out and grabs a few cans of potato soup. And at the time, I just had not drawn that connection at all.
Not at all.
But
thought it was craft services.
She says, "What are my? I don't know my lines." And she's like, "This isn't Dr. Zhivago, honey." And
nice timely reference.
While they're shooting, Candy is soaking in all the info she can. She actually looks at the camera because she's so distracted by paying attention to the way things are shot, rather than paying attention to the lovemaking in the scene, which seems to be second nature for her. She can do that with her, literally with her hands tied behind her back. But yeah, when the ejaculate is first shown, my jaw was on the floor, and but then we see that it's Turkey Baster, and he says, "Hey, don't squint. You're supposed to love Viking cum," and she's like, "Viking cum is okay. Cold potato soup sucks." And
so we see where her line is.
Yeah, her line is cold potato soup.
Yeah,
right.
Okay, she likes it warm.
So Fat Moonies gets raided, and he's like, "Hey, I don't know why you guys are busting my balls over here. I'm curious if Larry dropped the dime on that place."
Oh,
do you guys get
probably.
the impression of that?
I didn't even think about that until you bring it up. But you know what?
Sense.
They may be, and they may be building the case that Larry is in bed with the cops already,
right.
Which would not be a huge shock. So I didn't catch that, but you know what, Dylan? I think you may be right.
I think you're right too. That makes the timing of it and everything it makes total sense.
You have to think there's a reason for everything, and I'm just trying to think of what. Darlene goes to the library to get a book, and she has to sign up for a library card. And you could tell that the librarian at first, like, "What are you doing here?" Like, what? And she's like, "Oh, I actually want a book." And she's like, "You really want a book?" She's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Do you know what book you want?" She's like, "Yeah." And she's like, lets her guard down a little bit. She's like, "Okay, this isn't. I don't have to kick this girl out or anything." First, she's later seen at the Korean place reading it. A lady comes up to talk to her. Wants to ask her some questions. Says she's a bit of an anthropologist, and Larry sees it and pulls her away quick. What did you guys gather from this? Is this like a reporter of sorts?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I feel like when in the trailers that were coming out, it seemed like there was going to be some sort of reporter edge to it. And then I watched the behind the scenes like little thing after the episode, and yeah, they said she's a reporter, and she's actually modeled off of someone in real life who went into the streets and interviewed prostitutes and kind of published like a day in the life articles to expose what was going on or to let people know what was going on there.
And we should also remember that this is what David Simon's background is. For years, he was a newspaper reporter in Baltimore, and a lot of his shows have had reporters and dealt with journalism. The Wire, the last season of The Wire specifically dealt with the newspaper industry and newspaper reporters. And because that's his background, I think we'll see a lot of... That's his expertise. We'll see a lot of screen time given to this character because this is the lens he looks at everything through, is the lens of a journalist.
So Candy asks a bunch of questions about the equipment, and as she's on her way out, she's like, "Hey, what's up with the reflector?" And she's like, "Oh, well, it's it's soft low light. If you do it on this side and this side, it makes it brighter." And she asks about like what they're using to get rid of shadows in the background and all that kind of stuff. Cece watches over Lori late that night, and she goes up into the hotel-ish with the guy with the trench coat, and he drags her out in cuffs later. Cece comes up apparently trying to bribe the guy, but out of nowhere comes out with a knife and stabs him, which I did not expect.
I believe my exact reaction was, "Oh shit!" Alone in my living room. Oh my god!
So apparently this guy was gonna take Lori and kill her.
Yeah, he was.
And he's
Cece
like,
knew it.
he's like, you're really in the big leagues now. Like, and what a way to show his value. Am I right?
That's
Like,
exactly why you have a pimp.
Yes.
That's exactly why.
He is a grown man, right? Like, he saw through this situation, and and he saved her life.
Yeah.
So anyway, anybody out there that is out there without a pimp, let this be a lesson to you.
Was that a threat?
So Candy sits in her apartment watching porn on a nice projector later. So, and she seems to be inspired. Also, it shows how much money she has.
Yeah, she has a projector.
As a projector.
Yeah, I wonder if she's gonna go more behind the lens. Like, it seems like
I
like
feel
you
like
said, she is. Yeah, she's way more interested in the mechanics of it all and like the control of that, and that was interesting to me. I didn't really go into the series thinking that she'd be directing porn, and now I'm like, oh, I think she's gonna be, figuring out the behind the scenes stuff, and that's a really
Michelle
cool
McLaren
turn.
of porn.
I thought about Michelle McLaren. Yeah, because she was watching it with that kind of director's eye and that artful eye. So I'm even more excited to see where her journey takes her.
So the police randomly discuss the stabbing victim, and they kind of say they want to find out who it is because he was a beloved biology teacher.
Yeah.
Talks about some strangulation victim, seems to scoff at Alston for asking questions about it. The captain or chief or whatever he is. Then he says there's 2 rapes, but one of them's a prostitute, so who's to say?
Yeah, that did not sit well with me.
Imagine.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, and I just kind of want to bring up, I listened to another really good podcast about true crime, and it's...
You want to plug that podcast?
Sure. It's called My Favorite Murder, and it's done by 2 really great female comedians. And so there's a real kind of feminist edge to it, and they take up a lot of issue that, not just in the past, but currently, when crimes are done against sex workers, it's not as heavily pursued as with other people. And that's been a really rough issue. And obviously this is highlighting that, especially back in the day, where if it happened to a prostitute or a sex worker of some sort, it was not taken as seriously or not pursued as much. And I thought it was good of the creators or the writers to acknowledge that, like, especially at this time, that's how it was addressed. And yeah, it's just kind of showing you another sign of the times.
And then as a bookend to the story, we see the futility and the revolving door of the police work in the Deuce as Rodney mocks Alston for arresting the prostitutes that night and checking their property slips or whatever those are called. And because of that, he says everybody's going in tonight. And he says,
yeah, I thought that was another interesting like power move.
Yeah,
of how Rodney was like talking shit, and then it's like, oh really? Well, now I'm taking everyone.
Yeah.
So there are these little power plays, these little micro things happening, where the power kind of shifts every once in a while. So definitely fun to watch that.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Gina, because that was something we talked about, last week, is that is the theme of this show, is power. Power, who has it, who doesn't, who wants it, what they'll do to get it. But this is a show about power. And I think they're showing that in even the smallest scenes, so that we see that every character is interested in some type of power.
Yep.
All right, so yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Anything else that we need to discuss that we have skimmed over, Gina or John?
No, I think
we dropped the deuce.
We sure did. Wow, we're leaving it to the end of the podcast to talk about it in that way.
Wow, we're maturing as millennials.
We're maturing.
Why don't you tell people where they can follow you on the internet, John?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at John, JohnKBucher, or check out my website at tellingabetterstory.com.
Are you going to be back home next week?
I will. I'll be back in the studio recording with you guys next week. So thanks for letting me call in while I'm out, gallivanting around the country this week. Thanks.
Yeah, we figured we'd let you out from time to time, so what better time than now? Gina, where can people follow you on the internets? That you're very active now on the Twitters.
I think I have one response tweet. So I'm on Twitter at Gina Mirtallo, GinaMirtallo, and you are welcome to tweet me or retweet me or @reply me, whatever we do on there, and I will try to respond and hit the little heart and comment and be more active.
So you'll interact with people on social media if they contact you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Wow,
I mean, it may take a while.
A shocking turn of events, guys. A shocking turn of events.
That's a commitment.
Yeah.
From me to you.
For me, you can follow me at Shuckster. That's SCHUCKSTR. Check out the Watch and Talk, the movie review podcast. This last week, we just reviewed Mother, the new Darren Aronofsky film, which I had some things to say about. You can check that out if you want to hear us review it. And then this upcoming week, we're going to be doing Kingsman 2, The Golden Circle, or the title that be. We do non-spoiler reviews of the movie at the beginning and then spoiler reviews at the end. So if you haven't seen it, you can listen. We do fun top 5 lists. Like last week for our Mother review, we did our top 5 Jennifer Lawrence films. And then a fun top 5 list. And then we, obviously discuss the movie and all that kind of stuff. So check that out. And for the show, you can follow us at The Deuce Drop. You can email us thedeucedrop@gmail.com, go to our website at thedeucedrop.com, or go to Facebook at facebook.com/thewatchandtalk. And that's it. I'm Dylan Shuck.
I'm John Booker.
And I'm Gina Mirtallo.
And we'll see you next week. All right, Bros Fs.
Woo! Technical difficulties be damned.
Yes.
That's
we done did it.
Plow through them, you know what I'm saying? All right, guys.
Content was above par
in
spite of the challenges.
Next week we'll shoot for 7 p.m.
Yes.
Sounds good.
All right, guys.
I'm down.